Hey everybody, welcome back. So it's summertime and I figured I'd make a video about Air Force ROTC. That's College Air Force ROTC, not to be confused with JROTC. I know a lot of you out there have probably just recently graduated from high school and you're going to go to college in the fall. And you're maybe thinking, well, I'm interested in the military. Well, if so, ROTC might be for you. The other option you would have, if you didn't go to college and you still wanted to serve, you would enlist. This video is not about enlisting. This video is about college ROTC. If you're thinking about joining Air Force ROTC, I'm going to give you everything you need to know about what to expect before, during, and after joining. So let's get started. Some quick information about me. I actually did teach ROTC in college for 5 years. And so I know a little bit about that. I was a cadre member. So a lot of this is coming from the perspective of a cadre member. I was also in ROTC way back 20 plus years ago. That's where my background is in. I did 20 years in the Air Force. I also taught junior ROTC for 4 years, and I'm currently teaching at a university as a civilian. One of the first questions I get asked is, what do I need to do to prepare for ROTC during the summer before school starts? So as far as knowledge goes, it doesn't hurt to study up on some military ranks or things like that. It doesn't hurt, but it's not necessary. It's going to help you out if you do, but not necessary. If I would give you one piece of advice, it would be to get into shape. To get into shape this summer so that you are ready to go when fall starts and the school year starts, because Air Force ROTC PT is no joke. And by PT, I mean physical training. Most colleges are going to be doing physical training 3 times a week. That's what we did in my university, and most of all the other ones that I have talked to, they also do PT 3 times a week. So do yourself a favor, get in shape beforehand, at least somewhat shape. Start running, run a couple miles every other day, at least. So you're not really struggling when that PT starts. The very first PT of the year, every year we would have freshmen, first year cadets throwing up on the track. Well, we tell them don't throw up on the track, so they have to throw up on the side of the track, but they push themselves and they're not ready for it, and they go to hopefully make it to the trash can to throw up. But that's going to make it a little bit easier on yourself. Other thing that usually will happen at a university before school starts is some kind of introductory day or week for ROTC. Usually this happens when people are coming the week before school. So at my school at Purdue, we had what was called TD0, which stands for Training Day 0. And with that, you can show up each of these days, and you get a tour of the campus. You get to meet some of the upperclassmen. You get to meet some of your fellow first years, and you get some paperwork out of the way and things like that. It's not required, but it's definitely something I would recommend doing if your school does that. So that gives you kind of like a bit of a head start before school starts. So then a little bit more basic question then. How do you sign up for ROTC? Well, if you're interested in signing up for ROTC right now, you could call your detachment at the school you're going to, if they have an ROTC detachment, and you could ask about how to do it. It's really going to be as simple as adding a few classes. You're going to need to have a class on Air Force ROTC class, the first year class. You're going to have a PT class, like I said, probably 3 days out of the week, PT. And then you're going to have a leadership laboratory class, which is going to consist of, it's going to be about an hour and 15 minutes once a week. This is run by the upperclassmen cadets, and us as cadre would just observe, make sure everything is going to plan. But they always plan the weekly lead lab, and you're going to do a lot of marching, and you're going to do some classwork stuff too. All right, so even if school starts and you haven't joined ROTC and you haven't gone to TD0, you're still in that add drop kind of time frame. You can still add the class the first couple weeks of school as well. So just because you're not in the class the first week, don't worry about it. You can still get in a little bit later. In fact, you could also get in the second semester if you missed the first semester. All right, next up is uniforms. You're wondering what kind of uniforms you're going to get and when you're going to get those uniforms. So this does depend on a university by university case basis, but you're going to get the PT uniform right away because we got tons of those and they're really easy to size, you know, small, medium, large, extra large, etc. So we'll be able to get you those PTs really quick. The uniform is probably the way we did it, and I think a lot of schools do it this way, is they don't give the AS1s, the first years, the uniform until after the first semester. That allows for people to add and drop, stuff like that, throughout that semester, and then they don't have to fit them when they're just going to drop the course anyway. So it's kind of just a more efficient way to do it. We would require them to wear like khakis and a black polo shirt. We actually had a unique polo shirt for our detachment that everyone would get, and we would just have them wear that during the uniform wear days and during class times. But once you do get a uniform, you will have to wear a uniform 1 day a week, and that's on lead lab day, and you also will have to wear it to the class that you have in ROTC. Some people don't like to be seen in uniform because maybe it messes with their style. They don't like that. They want to show off their fashion sense, so they don't like the uniform. But other people do like the uniform. So it really is on case by case basis, but it's not a big deal. You just wear the uniform. At the end of the day, you go home, change out, and do whatever else you want the rest of the day. Yeah, and you will need to have your hair in standards. Like you won't be able to have this kind of beard growth that I have here. That's not going to be allowed. And you're going to have to, well, my hair would pass, but my beard would not pass. So you have to have your hair short. There's regulations. I'll tell you about it. So don't get too upset about it. You can't have a mustache, though, as long as your mustache doesn't exceed the opening of your mouth, I guess. So it's kind of like a little Hitler-type mustache. Not exactly the most pleasing to look at kind of mustache. When you do sign up, you will have to do some paperwork. The paperwork is going to be, it's a variety of paperwork. It's actually quite a bit. It's less if you don't have a scholarship, which I'll get into that in a bit, but you still do have to do certain paperwork. And what I want to talk about with the paperwork is they're going to ask you about any civil involvements that you've done and drugs. Currently, you can previously have partook in smoking, or I guess not necessarily smoking, but you can have participated in marijuana usage in the past. I don't know the amount of times. Back then it was like 5 times. If you've done it less than 5 times or 5 times or less, that could be waived. And then as long as you didn't do it going forward, you were good to go. Now there are certain drugs that's not going to work with, like cocaine, heroin, things like that. They're not going to let you in the military if you've previously done those drugs. But if you one night randomly did cocaine and nobody really knows that you did the cocaine and no way of telling that you did the cocaine, then you didn't get arrested for it. So not to compromise anyone's integrity, of course, but if you want to be in the military and you've done those drugs, you're not going to be able to be in the military. So say what you want, but if you didn't get caught for it, maybe you just don't remember doing it. I don't know. So drugs is definitely one, and civil involvements is another. So civil involvements, you don't want to get too in the weeds on civil involvements. If you got pulled over and the cop gave you a warning, a verbal warning, and let you go, don't tell us that. There's no record of it. It's going to make more work for us because then we'll have to try to track it down. There's going to be no record of it, and what do we do then? You've already said that you did this and you got a verbal warning, but we have no kind of corroborating evidence for that. So we're going to be kind of stuck and trying to figure out how to get rid of that because you shouldn't have reported it in the first place. So I would say anything that's a warning, verbal warning, or even possibly a written warning, I would not mention that because it's not really a civil involvement. It's a warning. You weren't ticketed for speeding or whatever. It was a warning. So my best advice to you, do what you want to do, but if it was me, I'm not mentioning warnings. It gets too much into the details on these sort of things. We're talking about significant civil involvements. Like a traffic ticket, yes, that's about as small as you want to go. A parking ticket, I don't know. I guess you could say you got a parking ticket, but nobody really cares about it anyway. So the thing is, you have to have some kind of evidence for this. So it's just kind of silly, but If you say that you did something and we want to find out a backstory about what happened, we have to call that police department, see if we can find a copy of the report on that, and then decide whether or not you can still be in the program. So it's really a lot. We want to know significant things. Take that as what you will. Okay, next up, can you just try out Air Force ROTC without having a commitment? Why, that's a very good question. And yes, you can. You can try ROTC without any kind of commitment for the first 2 years. Once you do the first 2 years, you go off to what we call field training. Field training is kind of like really watered down, small version of basic training. Once you get back from that, you have to sign your contract. So once you get back from field training, you sign that contract, then you are obligated to commission in the Air Force once you graduate. That's your hard requirement, obligation. That's when you have an obligation. Before that, you have no obligation. So you want to quit through your freshman year, you want to quit your sophomore year before field training, go ahead, quit. It's not for you. Not a problem at all. But once you come back, you're going to have to sign on that dotted line saying that you are going to commit to 4 years in the Air Force as an officer. And that's when the obligation starts. The one caveat I will say to being able to stop your freshman year or sophomore year is if you do get a scholarship. If you've gotten a high school scholarship or you get an in-college scholarship before you go to field training, then you do have that obligation. You are required to stay. Because once you start paying for your school, you're going to be obligated to continue and give back to the military because they're paying for your college. So in that case, you are obligated. But it's still not really that hard and fast. So if you get a scholarship and you do the first year, as long as you say, hey, I don't like this, I'm going to quit. As long as you do that before your second year starts, no harm, no foul, go on your way. You don't owe any money or anything. But once you start that sophomore year and you're on scholarship, you are definitely going to need to continue through. Otherwise, you're going to have to, if you want to quit after that, you're going to have some issues. You're going to have to go through disenrollment. You might have to pay back some money. You might have to enlist in the Air Force. So that just creates a whole new set of problems for you. So be sure you want to continue on after that freshman year if you're on scholarship. Okay, other question is, what if you're not like an 18-year-old first year freshman in college? What if you're a freshman in college or a transfer student from college, but you're older? What then, you know? Well, you can still join ROTC even if you are older. The cutoff is for commissioning is 39. So as long as you're commissioned by 39, that's quite a lot of time. And you will, the only thing you'll have to deal with younger kids being around and the upperclassmen telling you what to do, even though you might be older than the upperclassmen. Some people have a problem with that. I have experience with this a little bit because I did join the Air Force after high school for 4 years. I enlisted. Then I went to ROTC after that, and I was able to do a 2-year program at the time. So I had taken classes in the Air Force. And then when I went to college, there was this option for tech majors where you can do a 2-year program. So I did that, and I didn't really have much of a problem there. I was in good enough shape to not really worry about the PT part of it. Some people, as they get older, the PT gets more difficult. Some people are, as they get older, they get annoyed by these gung-ho ROTC younger kids telling them what to do and yelling at them, and it doesn't work out. But it's temporary. Just stick with it. The other thing that people don't really like is like the marching. People don't like the military because they don't like the marching. They don't see the point of marching. And I get it. Marching is kind of a pain. You see from that parade, the Army parade that happened earlier this month, a lot of those guys were not marching very good. They weren't marching in step. Their marching technique was off, and there's a reason for that. After basic training and after any kind of commissioning program, you don't hardly march at all. Maybe you'll have a special parade at your base that some people might have to march in this parade, but in general, once you get through like your sophomore year really in field training, you don't really march much after that. You're going to march your freshman year, you're going to march your sophomore year to get you prepared for field training where you do need to march. You do need to know how to march a flight, how to command a flight. But once that's over, you're not going to really go back to it. So during lead lab as a junior or a senior, you're going to be more of a leadership role, advisory role, and you're not going to be marching anymore. And when you commission, again, you're going to march never, probably, possibly. So that was one of the things that someone asked me about as well. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the requirements. So who can join ROTC? Well, you have to either be an American citizen or be in the process of getting your American citizenship. You do have to have that citizenship completed before you go to field training, because they can't contract you if you're not an American citizen yet. So make sure to get the steps going for that if you're not currently an American citizen. Other than that, the main requirement is you need to obviously stay out of trouble. So you can't get any bad, can't get into drugs, bad civil involvements, things like that could get you kicked out. And for GPA, you have to stay above a 2.0 to remain at ROTC. And I would say you should strive for much, much higher than that, because some years in ROTC are very competitive just to stay in the program. And if you're sitting right around 2.0, you're not going to get that position, you're not going to get that slot to go to field training. And then if you don't get the slot to go to field training, you could try again the next year possibly, but you might be a good chance you're on the way out and getting dropped from the program. So I would shoot for at least a 3.0, which is going to help you out in multiple ways too. You get a better GPA, you're going to have a better ranking by your commander. You're going to be more competitive for the jobs that you want. So just getting the best grades possible is the best advice I can give you there. Okay, some other things that are going to happen during your time in ROTC is you're going to have to get a physical. It's called a DODMERB. You hear the term DODMERB a lot. So DOD stands for DOD, Medical Evaluation Review Board, DODMERB. So you'll have to go to a place either locally, or if you don't have a place locally, you might have to go out a little bit depending on your area. But they're going to give you a military physical. And so you have to be able to pass your military physical. That's one thing. You're also going to have to take what's called the AFOQT, which is the Air Force Officer Qualification Test. The category of these, so there are things that you can be removed from the program against your will. One is civil involvements. If you've gotten in trouble with the law, a serious crime, drug use. If you don't pass your military physical, you're going to have to get dropped. And the AFOQT is another one. So the AFOQT is the Air Force Officer Qualification Test. It tests you on a variety of different topics. Like it's your typical kind of standardized test. So you have a verbal section, you have a quantitative section, you have a reading comprehension, that sort of thing, physical science, table reading. There's also sections on navigation and pilot. So you really only need to worry about is the quantitative and the verbal. So basically the math and the English kind of sort of thing. The minimum I think is 11 on that, and 11 should not be too difficult to get, because that means the scoring goes that at 11 you would have scored better than 11% of the people who took it hypothetically that year. It's kind of like that, one of those things. So the highest you can get is a 99, being as you scored higher than 99% of the people who theoretically took the test that year. So it's not a hard test to pass, but some people do struggle with it. Every year there was a couple people who did not pass the AFOQT, and they do a retake. Most of the time they pass it with the retake, but there were instances where they did not pass the retake. Then you get a waiver for a third one. And in my time, we've gotten everyone through. So some people are bad test takers, but there are definitely ways to help you study for the AFOQT to make sure you pass that. All right, then you get to the point where what do you do when you graduate? Well, when you graduate and you're in the ROTC program, you're going to go off and become an officer in the Air Force. And I say that everything has got a but with it, right? So yes, majority of all Air Force ROTC cadets will graduate and then go on to be active duty in the Air Force. However, each year they do pick a few that are wanting to go into the reserves or the Guard possibly, instead of going active duty. So you can that's going to be like on a year-to-year basis. So there's no guarantee of that showing up, and even if it does show up, there's no guarantee you're going to get it. So I would expect to go into active duty once you graduate college. And with that being said, you want to know what kind of job you want to do, and that happens your senior year. Usually you'll put it, what we call a dream sheet, which is you put your AFSCs that you're going for, and like you get a list, like I want this one most, second most, third most, etc. So you could be like a air battle manager, which is kind of like an air traffic controller in the sky. You could be a comm person, cyber, police, most any job that you have in the civilian world you could have in the Air Force. So you should figure out what job makes you the happiest and go for that one, because you don't want to be miserable in your time in the military. So go with what suits you. I did a lot of careers, actually, now I think about it. Started off as a computer programmer, enlisted, then became a cyber officer for a year, then became a missileer for 5 years, then I became a space officer for another 5 years, and then my last job was a ROTC instructor for about 5 years. So I did a lot of different things, and you're going to find that. And when you're in the military, you're going to do a lot of different things, which is great. You don't want to do the same thing for 20 years. You want to go different places, do different things. So, but definitely research the career fields to see what you might want to do. And there will be a rated board at some point, and I did a whole other video on rated boards and how to be competitive for pilot slots, so you can check that out. That's a whole nother video. But rated are like the pilots. Air Battle Manager is a rated one. I mentioned Air Battle Manager, but that's a rated position too. RPA pilots, so drone pilots basically, is a rated position as well. So if you're interested in that, that's like a whole subset of being selected. And certain jobs do require certain degrees as well. So make sure to look into that. Make sure your degree matches with what you're looking for to do. And you're gonna end up having to do 4 years after you graduate. For most jobs, 4 years. Pilot is going to be 10, and that 10 doesn't count until you're done with pilot training, so it really ends up being 12, which is a long time. But most other jobs is going to be 4 years. Nothing less than 4. Some people wondered what PT is like. So PT is going to vary from location to location. If it's like what we did here, it's going to be typically a lot of intense calisthenics mixed in with running. So you'll have to maybe run a quarter mile, do calisthenics, run a quarter mile, do calisthenics, and you're always moving. If you get done with your quarter mile first, you got to get into plank or start doing squats. It's exhausting, and it's a good hour-long workout. You stretch and stuff like that before you get going to warm up, but it's tough. It'll get you in good shape for sure. So that's what PT is like. And if you don't stick with the program, you'll have those PT gear that you can keep, because they don't want that back. You will have to give back your uniforms, or you'll have to pay them for those uniforms, because uniforms are expensive. There are activities that you'll do in ROTC, social activities. There'll be trips, things like that. And I would encourage you to volunteer for those things, to meet other cadets. Unless you just hate them all and want to do your own thing, then that's fine too. But it also helps you be known around the detachment, and then it kind of increases your chances of getting a higher ranking and things like that, and your peers thinking well of you, and just kind of shows you're a team player. But it's up to you. And I think this is the greatest, it's probably one of the best ways to get a commission is ROTC. So I would definitely recommend it and try it out. It's a good way to serve. You get to be a lieutenant. The bottom line is you graduate, you get your degree from your school, and then shortly after that, within a month or so, you'll have to report to your first base as a second lieutenant or a butter bar. And you get paid some pretty good money as a second lieutenant. Check out those pay charts. First lieutenant, big pay raise to first lieutenant. Captain's next, big pay raise to captain. And all those ranks are 2 years apart. From second lieutenant to first is 2. From first lieutenant to captain is 2. And you're a captain for longer than that, but you're making some great money as a captain. So don't got to worry about money as an officer in the Air Force unless you are very bad with money. So I definitely recommend it. It's a good way to serve, a good way to see different places in the world and serve your country at the same time. So let me know what your thoughts are. Did I miss anything? Did I say anything wrong? I have been out of the area of ROTC for a while, since I've been teaching JROTC for 4 years. And so things can change. But let me know if I missed anything, and have a good one. I'll catch you on the next one.